for being here today. I know I'm a little bit ahead of schedule, but that's what the doctor asked me to do. So we're going to start a little bit earlier. Excited for part 2 of a two-part series, obviously, regarding coping parenting and grandparenting in the digital age by Dr. J.R. Paulson. We will take a break, shorter break, and then we'll have time for questions at the end. We're hopeful. Because we didn't take questions last time because, I had a lot of questions after watching the recording, but they're hopefully going to be all answered today with the second part. So, again, welcome everyone. A couple reminders. Please silence your phone, turn your T-coil on if you have one. We'll, like I said, take time for questions afterwards, and if you could help us put chairs away at the end, that would be wonderful. All right. Dr. J.R. Paulson, thank you for being here. Please help me welcome.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, thank you all for coming. This is part 2, and this is where we're going to talk about potential solutions. However, since last week, I have a little update. I wanted to show you a couple slides that I'm adding to my last presentation. I think it reinforces my points from the first presentation. Some of you may have seen this. CBS Evening News, they did a special report, March 19th. Smartphone addiction is leading to brain rot, doctors say. That's the new terminology, Dr. Ferguson, that we learned is called brain rot. Smartphones addiction raises concerns about brain health, maybe linked to a concerning level of changes in the brain that you can see on MRIs. That show that these chronic users really have some bad things going on in their brain. And this is an example of that. Now, you don't have to know what's going on, but those red areas and lighting up places are not where they're supposed to be. It's just not. And this happens to be the brain of a freshman student in South Carolina who's not doing well in college. In fact, she was flunking out. And they asked her, hey, can we take a look at your brain? She said, fine. Well, it was like this. She averaged 7 hours a day on her phone. And this is what her brain looked like. Now, the second part of that, which we're into today, is treatment. So what do? They put her in a rehab treatment, just like you do for alcohol. They put her in, took away her phone for 2 weeks. And I thought it was neat. In place of that, they gave her art to draw, gave her drawing classes and guitar classes on playing guitar. And within 2 weeks, she was about 90% cured. But changes were in her brain. How long they will take to go back, I don't know. Brian Chen. Some of you might have seen this in the New York Times. 2 days ago, so up to date, he's their tech consumer author guy. And he says, dear readers, I have a confession. I'm suffering from an ailment that the younger ones call, have you heard this term before? Brain rot. The inability to think deeply after too much scrolling on my phone. These days, it's tough even to finish a book. So here's your tech guy for the New York Times saying, I've got the same problem. Well, he's going to introduce and tell us about a dumber phone. Can it cure brain rot? And this is a picture of it, and it's for sale now. And so he did an article on it. And what's neat, you can place calls, you can send texts, you can take photos, it shows map directions, plays music and podcasts, but that's about it. There's no web browsing, no app store, and no social media, and no email. Those of you that were preschool teachers or kindergarten teachers, kids are losing fine motor skills, and screens are to blame. They're finding problems with zipping coats, turning book pages. These tasks that involve manual dexterity, kids are coming to preschool and school now, and they don't have that. Major change. What does a chimp mom do when her baby is crying? What does a good chimp mom do? Gets her kid and brings it to her like this, right? What does a Gen Alpha mom do when her baby is crying? Why? Give it a smartphone, of course. This was taken by my former nurse, Susie Sondag, about 2 weeks ago. She was out in public, and there was a little baby, maybe half-a-year-old in the bassinet. It started crying and wailing. And so the mom did not go up and pick it up and see if it had pooped in its pants or had a pin stuck in it or anything else, or cuddle it. Gave it her cell phone. And Susie took a picture of that, and of course was shocked, and then sent it to me. And I said, Susie, can I use that in my presentation? She said, sure. So my comment on that is, there go millions of years of evolutionary maternal conditioning down the drain. I mean, think of that. That's profound. This is the most basic instinct there is in a mother. When your baby is hurting, you go to it, you give it a cell phone at that age. Another one from February. I found pornography on my husband's computer. I'm furious. So it's not just about the younger generation, folks. This digital media thing is affecting everybody. So let's move on to solutions. I gave you the previous comparison to climate change and social media overuse. And they're both huge problems and threats. They're worldwide phenomena. They both affect every man, woman, and child on the planet. They're accelerating, and neither has a simple solution. First presentation showed that a whole generation of children have had their youth hijacked by smartphones and the overuse of social media in particular, and has led to an epidemic of anxiety, depression, and loneliness for children around the world, not just in the U.S. Over the last several decades, it has reshaped our culture, and for many, even family life. Its effects have been intergenerational, affecting not only children, but their parents and grandparents. So there's the grandparents there, and gee, what's everybody else doing? A warming planet and brain rot are hard to fix. Unfortunately, combating climate and social media overuse has no simple solution. They both require persistent in different arenas to make significant changes. But is inaction and just acceptance, well, that's the way it is, times are changing, really an option? What can we do to reverse the current situation? In this book, Jonathan Haidt, The Anxious Generation, suggests a number of things we can do. I'll discuss some of his suggestions, but also give additional comments and solutions of my own. Now, I have my suggestions and my criteria. Recommendations, in my opinion, must be realistic, not just theoretic. They should be based on data. I'm a scientist at heart. I want to see real data, real experiences, something that's tried and shown to be successful. It should pass the test of common sense, which is not common today. And they should not have a significant financial cost. Let's be realistic, folks. They should not have to rely on governments or politicians to implement. I think we understand why that. And positive results should be seen almost immediately, within weeks, although others may take longer. Changes in specific areas should be synergistic, that is, producing changes in other areas. In fact, we must make changes in multiple areas if we are to be successful. Another start point. Every suggestion needs to be individualized, just like in medicine. One prescription, one diagnosis does not fit all. No two children, adults, schools, communities are the same. What's appropriate for one may not work for another. We should not expect all of our trials to be successful, but learn from the ones that didn't work and modify our approach. 2 additional thoughts. We need to create and develop plans and actions with input and buy-in from the children. It won't work without their input and participation. Just making a bunch of rules won't get us where we want to be. However, at times, we must be the adults in the room and make policies that they may not like or agree with. As adults, we must role model and practice what we preach. Besides, many of us, our own mental health and concentration has been hijacked, often without our awareness, by the overuse of digital social media. So Haidt, in this book, gives the recommended areas, parents, governments, big tech, individuals, and schools. I'll use that, But I like to use the control continuum when trying to decide on the efficacy of actions that I'm considering. And it's a continuum. Some things I have no control over. What's happening in Washington, D.C. right now. Some control or complete control. I found that on a tree, which fruit should you go after first? The low-hanging that you can reach, the next higher that would require someone to get on your shoulders or a ladder, or the fruit at the very top of the tree that probably requires a big ladder or a cherry picker. So I'm going to go in this order, start at the top of the tree, the least likely, and work down to the low-hanging fruit. So big tech and social media platforms. What can social media platforms do to help? Will they or have they regulated themselves? What do they say? But more importantly, what do they do? And what's the likelihood they will change? Remember, it's not social media per se, but it's the choice of what is viewed and how much time is spent on it. So, yes, there are benefits from social media, of course. Increased social connection, community building, education and digital learning. A lot of you are here because of social media and awareness of this talk. But there's a lot of risks, but it can be harmful. I hope I made the case that social media can have devastating effects on many, but not all children. So let's take a look at big tech and social media companies. I'd like to read you a real-world case example from Haight's book that will bring up a number of points that we'll have already talked about or will discuss more. And this is a picture of a family, and the girl in the right upper is Alexis. At this time of this picture, she's 19. So Alexis Spencer was born on Long Island in 2002. She got her first iPad for Christmas in 2012 when she was 10 years of age. But when she was in 5th grade, the other kids started to tease her for the things that she was going on and playing on and urged her to go on and get an Instagram account. Now, Alexis's parents were very proactive way back then. They were ahead of the game on this. They were concerned about technology. They maintained strict prohibition on screens in the bedroom. She and her brother had to use a shared computer in the living room so the parents could see what was going on. They checked Alexis's iPad regularly to see what apps she had, and they said no to Instagram. Like many other young girls that age, Alexis found ways to circumvent those rules. She opened an Instagram account, of course, herself, by stating that she was of age. That's all she had to do. She would download the app, and also parents would look at her iPad. She learned how to delete it. So when she's home, but then when she go back or wanted to use it, she put the app back on. She learned to hide the app under other apps. So the parents would look on there. I don't see anything on Instagram. Oh, it's under the weather app or under some other app. Pretty smart. Her parents eventually did find this out, that she had an account, and they began to monitor it and set restrictions. She set up secondary accounts. She found out how to do this with other kids without their knowledge and was posting around. So at first, Alexis was elated by Instagram. And I remember she said, wow, I had 10 followers, but then pretty soon I got 127 followers. Amazing, I'm so happy. But within 5 months, things started to change. Signs of depression. After she first opened her first Instagram, she drew some pictures that I'm going to show you. Within 6 months, she's getting all these things from Instagram, showing real skinny women and all these things that we talked about last time. And this is the picture that she drew 6 months after that. And you can't see it, but on her computer there it says worthless, ugly, stupid, kill yourself, and same on her phone. And then the thoughts in her brain: stupid, worthwhile, die, bitch, fat, weirdo, freak, fag. So this is a drawing that she made 6 weeks later. Well, she spent the next years in and out of hospitalizations and treatment for anorexia and depression. So finally, she and her parents, after years of treatment, decided that this is horrible. They're going to sue Meta for their daughter's addiction. Well, she's not alone. Every dot just shows another case of some tragedy. Could be a suicide. Could be loss of their mental health. So there are many lawsuits out there now, and there are organizations and lawyers that just do this, people that have been harmed on social media. There's a Social Media Victims Law Center, and they try to say, hey, look, there's product liability from these social media companies, and we're going to hold them accountable. Who else is blowing the whistle? Bill Maher, blast social media tycoons. But let's get more serious. Social media executives under scrutiny. Congress says, oh, we're going to safeguard our children online. So social media executives grilled on the failures. I don't know if any of you have seen this. Ex-Facebook employee says the executives knew what they're doing. The employee is a whistleblower. No, this was just a little over a year ago. Sean Parker, he's the first president of Facebook. Way back in 2017, interviews. He explained the social validation feedback loop by which these companies exploit a vulnerability in human psychology. The apps need to give you a little dopamine, which we talked about every once in a while, because someone liked you or commented on you. And it's going to get you to contribute more content, more likes. He said that he, the whistleblower, and Zuckerberg and Kevin Systrom, co-founder of Instagram and others, understood this completely. And we did it anyways, he said. He also said, God only knows what it's going to do to our children's brains. Well, now we know. But wait a minute, haven't we seen this movie before? Remember the good old days? Ads like this, more doctors smoke Camels than any other. Or the ENT specialists, throat doctors, vote Old Gold, the best for your throat. These ads were started in the 20s, and they persisted up into the 70s. Paid for that. Well, forward to 1964, the Surgeon General releases a report linking cancer to cigarettes. But in the 60s, tobacco industry was huge lobbying, as we know, forcing Congress, and still is, equivalent to Big Pharma today. So the warning that they had to put on there was, may be safe. So this is the first thing on the pack of cigarettes. May be hazardous to your health. Politically, this is the best we could do. But as millions and millions of people died or became disabled from cancer, heart disease, and emphysema, the warnings got more serious. Smoking was now costing Medicare and insurance companies and the government billions of dollars. Oh, now we got to get serious about this. So now we put the warning, no, it doesn't link. It causes. The Canadians are less hamstrung by their politician lobbyists than the U.S. So note, this is August 2023. They put these warnings on every single cigarette. Every time you go to put that in your mouth, you read one of those things. I think that's the first nation to do that. And they even know how and where to hit guys. Below the belt, where it hurts. So they have ads like this, the government. Hey guys, guess what? Smoking can cause impotence. Whoa. Well, in April 1994, it's important here to know this is 30 years after the Surgeon General's warning. 30 years after, Let's bring all these tobacco execs and let's have them testify to Congress. Each one testifying under oath that they believe nicotine is not addictive. Well, we all know what happened 3 years later. Oh, now there's federal lawsuit. The states they're going to pay all this money out. They're going to sue big tobacco. So 46 states get together, a $206 billion settlement over 25 years. Oh, that's going to really take care of it. Well, amortize it over 25 years, divide that up by maybe 4 or 5 big tobacco companies. That's only $250 million, which is $250 million. But what's the profits that tobacco has? It's not big. It looks like a huge number. It's just the cost of doing business. And they just increase the cost of cigarettes. Did that stop them from addicting our children? Nope. I love this quote. Tobacco is the only industry that produces products to make huge profits, at the same time damage the health and kill consumers. I beg to disagree. Tobacco is not the only one. Social media can be added. Big Tobacco tries to stop California flavored tobacco ban. They're flavoring this stuff for kids to get them hooked. Californians make a law, you can't do that. Oh, no, Big Tobacco goes in and tries to stop it. They just become more creative. Oh, let's go to e-cigarettes and vaping. Oh, it's harmless. Is water vapor? Yeah, analyze the stuff that you get out of there. And it's not just harmless as water vapor. And they target very young children. Tastes like cotton candy. So, boy, who wouldn't like some cotton candy? I sure would. Did you know that social media giants are in bed with Big Tobacco? Gee, social media influencers are paid to promote tobacco products. Next-gen vaping, example of advertising on social media. Do you think underage kids can find tobacco products online? Yeah. And fentanyl? Yeah. Facebook, to let Big Tobacco control all speech about smoking. Think about that. Social media companies could at least tighten the age of verification. They could do that. However, that's going to diminish the number of kids that could open an account. They want to hook kids as young as they can because they're more vulnerable at that age, and the ultimate goal is to hook them for a lifetime. Besides, if Instagram says, well, we're going to check our age verification, where are all those users going to go? Oh, well, I can't get on there. I'll go to TikTok. So they're not going to do it. I'll talk to you more about age verification later. Governments. Changing the tune. Social media, probably not going to do much. Governments, what could they do? What's our federal government done? What are other governments done around the world and other countries? What have state governments done? Could any local control be effective? Governments can and have. They set the limits before. You got to be this old to get alcohol or buy tobacco, right? They designated penalties for if you break these laws. But what should be the age for social media use, which I'm going to tell you later, what should a child be able to enter a contract with a corporation? That's what they're doing when they go on these social media things and allowed to track them. Now, we're not talking about when kids can be allowed to have a smartphone or any phone, but when they should be allowed to use it to go on social media. That's different. With what we've already said about the developing brain has harmful effects during puberty, especially preteen years, what are the age things we should consider? Well, large studies, this isn't just one. The greatest effect is in the puberty years. For girls, it's worse when they were 11 to 13. Boys, it's worse later when they're 14 or 15. Well, they go through puberty later. but it's in that window that it has its most harmful effects. So ideally, it'd be best to say, well, let's wait till 18. Well, I'm realistic. I said that was one of my criteria. Yeah, well, maybe if we even get it raised up to 16 to be able to go on the social media contact, that would be a great win. For example, what age do you want your child to have access to hardcore pornography? And trust me, today, as we've seen, it's all hardcore now. It's not mild out there. Or alcohol. Well, the United States, I didn't know this, I researched for this. Oh, we did pass a law. It's called COPRA. Wow. Children Online Privacy Protection, 1998. Why have I not heard of this? Well, what it did was said personal collection of information, nope. Kids under 13, nope. You can't do that. And because you have to give a notice for this and notice for that, notice for this. No, notification of parents is required. And it's verifiable parental consent is required. 2 words for that. BS. We saw what happened to Alexis and anybody else. They don't check this at all. The law is just absolutely worthless because they have no teeth whatsoever. So the shortcomings, well, original law said 16. That's the age least up there. Oh, kids' brains are pretty developed. No, we'll make it 13. It failed to impose any obligations on companies to verify the age. Well, if you don't, company, this is what's going to have to happen. And there was an only attempt to toughen this up in 2023. They said, let's at least raise the age 16, but it failed. We're not talking about the age when children can browse the web, watch videos on YouTube or TikTok. We're talking about this is signing contracts, social media. They can enter a contract. Does the person have to show real proof for an age to buy alcohol? Duh, yes. What happens to a business if it's caught selling to underage minors? Big fines. What's their liability if they're underage and go in and buy some alcohol and then kill somebody in an auto accident later that night and they go back and found out the store sold it to them? That place is sued humongously. They're put out of business. So we've done this before. Well, let's take a look at the UK. So they put this thing out called the AADC, Age Appropriate Design Code. This was in 2020. And why is it important? The rights of children are routinely ignored, in many cases illegally. And in almost every case, it's morally, we can see that. And the arrow down there points that they got the people from Facebook and Parliament in front of Parliament and said, you guys are failing on this, so we're passing this law. We're not waiting for you to do anything voluntarily. So they have to stop getting data on kids. You can't track them around. You can't follow their locations. You can't sell their data or what they're doing. You can't come up with these personal, individual type things. Or trick kids with dark patterns, which I have no clue what that is. Now, what's really neat about this is law is 4 years later. They said, I wonder if this worked. How did this do? Well, guess what? They assessed it and reviewed 91 to 100 different changes that this thing had brought about, controlling the 6 biggest platforms, YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Marketplace, and Google Search. And guess what they found? It made tremendous changes in all the areas they wanted. Youth safety and well-being, age-appropriate design, privacy, security, and time management. So it really made a huge improvement. And it was revolutionary. It asserted that companies are morally and legally, both, responsible for how they treat minors, which they, of course, should be. In addition, they defined a minor as anyone under the age of 18. Very impressed. Just the things we need to do. Well, what have other countries done? Particularly, I told you about gaming in South Korea. You saw in part 1, 20% of the South Korean youth are addicted. I mean, seriously addicted. So they passed the called Cinderella Law and said, well, we're going to regulate. We're going to let these kids only play video games between midnight and 6 in the morning. That's going to help fix the problem. But after 10 years, they found out it didn't fix the problem. Yes, there was constitutional challenges. That's a democracy, South Korea. So the gaming industry, oh, you can't do that. You can't. It's freedom of the kids and their parents' rights. They can let their kids watch whatever they want. Well, guess what? The Supreme Court in Korea said, folks, nope. This gaming addiction is detrimental on health, and we can control this. What about Vietnam and gaming? Countries placing a ban on all gaming activity from 10 o'clock to 8 in the morning now. Protecting youth from wasting their brains. I love that verbiage. They tried other things that didn't have any effect at all. What about China and gaming? I thought that was interesting. Well, they went back and found a few years ago, in 21, you can do 1.5 hours a day. And then they finally said, well, that's not good enough. And so now, new rule, under 18, not 16 or 13, allowed to play video games, an hour a day between 8 and 9 o'clock on Fridays, weekends, and legal holidays. Wow. Now, you say, well, the kids aren't going to do that. Oh, yeah, you have to have your ID in China. I mean, we know it's authoritarian. You can't go messing around with that. Required register for the real names in government. So government, big government, is watching you. China limits those under age 14, under age 14, to just 40 minutes a day on ByteDance, just like TikTok. 40 minutes a day. Pakistan has tried a number of social media apps and said, we're just banning them. Well, they couldn't figure out how to make that stick. Overseas, France and Rwanda imposed bans. French schools, if you're age of 15, won't be allowed to have a phone anywhere on the school grounds. You can't even don't even bring it on the campus. It's called the Decox Law for younger generation, increasingly addicted to screens. And as you know, Australia was in the news last fall because they passed the toughest social media ban that's coming up. But in January, they haven't figured out how to implement it yet. And we'll see how that's going to go. But it's a ban for under 16, not 18, and it's a benchmark, one of the toughest regulations in the world. But I'm very discouraged because they say, oh yeah, they can face fines up to 40 million. What does CDN stand for? Anybody know that? What? Canadian. Well, anyways, $44 million fines. You think Facebook or Meta or the pornography industry, which is in hundreds of billions, that's going to do anything? No. So, it's going to test case. We'll see what happens. Well, what can states do? California says, we want to do something. So they passed an age-appropriate design code. Where did they get that from? They said, Great Britain's got this great thing. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We're going to pass it. Well, guess what? In California, the Democrats and the Republicans unanimously passed it. The Governor Newsom signed it to go into effect July of last summer, 2024. So, way to go, California. Way to go, U.S. Way to be proactive. Oh, however, federal judge temporarily blocks this and says, I don't think it's going to pass constitutional muster. Needless, some other states already going ahead, Minnesota, Maryland, New Mexico, they're getting laws out there anyways. Said, we're going to do something. And what's Iowa going to do? Okay, pornography and Louisiana. A couple years ago, they said, well, we'll at least do something about pornography. So we'll put this, if it's more than a third pornography, you got to show that you're over 18. Well, how the heck are you going to do that? Well, the state says, to do that, you're going to have to submit your digital driver's license, which they have in Louisiana. Oh, so now I'm a kid, and I'm 9, 10, 11, 12, and I'm going on a pornography site, but I got to put my driver's license out there? Well, one, you got to be old enough to have a driver's license. So a 10-year-old, that ain't going to work. and their photo IDs on there. Well, putting that out there and sending it out there that, hey, I'm on these porn sites, it's really discouraged it. Now, what did Pornhub do at the other end? They just said, oh, let's see, you're coming, oh, you're from Louisiana. We're not even going to mess with you. 33 states sue Facebook and Instagram. Big whoopee deal is what I say on that. We know how long that's going to go and how much money they got to drag that out. Okay, let's talk about schools a little bit, and then we'll have a break. Limit school use, phones. These are all my things, and we're going to spend a lot of time on schools because I think that's a fruitful soil. Evaluate screens and technology. Develop and teach media literacy. Teach emotional intelligence. What's that? Critical thinking and scientific method. Require classes in wellness. Increase free play before, during, and after school day. More importantly, learn from what other schools had success doing. Have tried and had success. So let's look at some places what they tried. So we'll give one example and then we're going to have a break. Let's start with phones in the school question. Take the example of Mountain Middle School in Durango, Colorado. Way back in 2012, they had highest teen suicide, one of the highest in Colorado. Suicide of their kids. Students had rampant bullying, sleep deprivation. They rarely talked to each other in school. School's academic ratings were low. Incoming principal Shane Voss said, we got to change things. And this is a picture of Mountain View Middle School. Well, he said, one thing we'll do is just no schools on campus. Let's just do that. Gee, evaluate it later. The students are happier, less stressed, and more focused. Okay, that's nice. They feel better. But teachers, better attention in class. They got children are talking more at the lunchroom and in the halls. There was less anxiety. Teachers noticed they were happier. But look at the bottom. Their academic performance improved. And after a few years, they became one of the highest performance rating schools in Colorado. Just from the phone ban. Now, you don't spring cell phone bans on parents. This is one reason I'm doing public education, and I talked to the schools, and I met with the superintendent, and I'm going to show some videos to the school board and saying, hey, why can't we do this in downtown Grinnell? So by getting parents, we want them to see shows like this, to see why we're doing this, and also a movie. Now, this is a big issue. Ban them completely or just keep them in their backpacks, purses, or lockers, or just not out in class. And a lot of schools have gone to, locked pouches. So all the kids line up and they check in their phone when they come to school and they lock it up in a little thing. Then at the end of the day or they can go back and they get their phone back and what a hassle. But it's showing if they're not banned completely, teachers spend much of their time looking. So if I'm a teacher up there and I see somebody back there that's sleeping or down here with this, and I walk back and they're scrolling on their phone. Well, it's distracting for me, everybody else. It's just the way. I'm not a time teacher being policeman for that. And they've done studies where they say, okay, you just put it in your backpack, your purse. You're paying attention to the teacher, but your phone's right there. Just having it there. If you're an alcoholic, put a bottle of whiskey right next to you. How's that going to go? They can hear the little beeps and stuff through their thing. So, and as soon as class is over, what do the kids do? Run to their locker, get their phone out, scroll, see what their texts and stuff are got. Yeah. And so just having at lunch, if they don't have phones, they talk to other kids. Well, I think that's a good time for a break. Right, Sarah? And then we'll come back and talk about, how much tech should we have in our schools? And move on from there. Okay. So take a little break.
Hopefully we have a refresh of coffee and ready to go. Because one thing I can say for sure, JR, I I always enjoy your presentations, and there's a lot to focus on. So I appreciate that, though.
I'm glad
Thank
you're focusing, Sarah.
I'm focusing. I'm trying to focus.
It's
Even
hard,
though
but
my phone keeps dinging because I have emails
well,
coming
don't
through.
answer your phone.
So I feel a little bit weird. I am listening and watching. So anyway, all right, let's go. Let's get back.
Okay. You get the lights and So the next question, I think, is, and it's not easy to answer, how much digital tech should a school have? We don't want to go back to the dark ages. Now, many school systems have sought to advance technology programs one-to-one. Make sure every kid, Grinnell was one of those, every kid has a computer or tablet and has a device, and promote their use as much as, this is a digital age, kids. Oh, we want to do everything tech, everything tech. Other schools, like top-ranked Waldorf School of the Peninsula out on the West Coast, prohibits all digital media. There's no digital media in this school, kids and parents. And guess who goes there? Many of the top executives choose this school for their own children. Boy, process that. Now, we really need to have digital media to learn. Well, UNESCO and part of the World Health Organization did a hard evidence study and said, does it really improve working? If you have a good math teacher like Arne Engelberg or somebody, and you come in your class, you can teach them math. You have to do it with computers and razzmatazz stuff, and the answer is, not necessarily. A teacher can do that. Now, getting to the area where kids can't have school and you don't stuff, yes, that's a different actually. So my teaching is a 5th grade science teacher in high school. If I was teaching today, yes, I'd use some technology, but I'd stay in the real world with going outside, bringing real body parts of animals into the classroom. And yeah. So tech is good, but it isn't necessarily going to do that. So mandate classes in digital literacy and critical thinking. Now, as I said, having been a former teacher, there are other curricular additions that I would make. First, mandate classes on digital literacy, and I'm trying to get that into the school system here. The scientific method and critical thinking. Those are not optional topics, I don't think. Second, integrate instruction and daily practice in mental relaxation, meditation, mindfulness. It should also include some type of yoga and breath work. Third, a formal program which teaches students how to recognize, label, and regulate their own emotions. And I'll give you examples of all of these. Now, documentary highlights Durango's Mountain Middle School, which we just saw, did great with the phones. Media literacy success. So they showed this documentary movie called Trust Me, that I showed a couple months ago, no, just in February, and here in the schools and at the college. And I'm going to make that available more. They found that not only the kids, it's important to know all these platforms and media things, they're not going to go away. So you have to teach the kids how to look at that. Just because you see it on Facebook doesn't mean it's true. Just because it got forwarded to you from TikTok doesn't mean it's true. So they need to learn those skills. This Rosemary Smith came and stayed a couple days in Grinnell, and she and I did a presentation at the high school in February. The screening at the college where we're going to have was canceled because of the ice storm they had at the last minute. But we're going to reschedule it either later this spring or in the fall. And I'm scheduled, I talked to Leslie, and Carl and Erickson are going to show down in the Mayflower in the Carmen Center sometime in the next 2 to 4 weeks. So if you're interested, seeing that documentary, which I highly recommend. It's not just about kids, it's everybody. Now, I think these graphs clearly demonstrate the general failure of the educational system in the United States. So, why am I going to spend a short amount of time on this? So, it's a busy slide, but it's scientific and conspiracy theories. Vaccination, plants, computer chips. The Earth is flat, not round. NASA didn't really land on the moon. Now that's just all fake. And the earth is not billions of years old, it's just a few thousand years, like the Bible. Well, this breaks all this down intergenerational. And you ask the people, do you agree? I'm not sure, which is fine, or you disagree. So I highlighted a couple things here. Well, look at here on computer chips. Most of the the silent generation, really boomers, not too many of us think there's computer chips in our vaccination. I bet you if I asked you, show me, how many of you have been vaccinated for something? Raise your hands. Duh, okay. Well, let's take a look at Gen Z and millennials. Well, a percent of them, they think there's computer chips in there. Look at this, almost half, 40% really believe there's computer chips in there, okay? Who cares if the earth is flat or not? It doesn't make any difference, which is kind of true. Now, I like this one because as a science teacher, NASA did not land on the moon. So let's highlight the baby boomers. I don't know, I'm a late boomer. Well, gee, not very many of us don't believe that or are unsure. We watched it on television. Duh, we saw it happen live. Nothing beats. But look at Gen Z. Almost 50% either agree, no, we never went to the moon, or they're unsure. As a teacher and a former science teacher, I find that incredibly disturbing. Where do they get their information for that? There's a good movie in 1992, I don't know if you've seen it, called Sneakers with Robert Redford. He said, there's a war out there, old friend. A world war, and it's not about who has the most bullets, about who controls the information. What we see and hear, how we work, what we think, it's all about information. Key line in the movie in 92. Well, update to the Mid-East War. Media weapons can actually be more potent than atomic bombs. Where does that come from? Oh, Propaganda Handbook of the Islamic State. So the Islamic State is up to date on how to hurt your enemy and how to win the war. Not getting atomic bombs, but control the media. Value promotion and teach emotional intelligence. And there's a program called Ruler into the curriculum. Get that in there. It's about emotional intelligence, which we know now is as important as academic intelligence. You may be really smart IQ-wise, but if you're not emotionally intelligent and interacting with other people in the real world, you're at such a disadvantage. So what is Ruler? It's an evidence-based. I like evidence-based. It's developed at Yale for emotional intelligence. Understand the value of emotions, build skills, positive school climates. So it's an acronym for recognize the emotions in yourself and others. Body language. Wow. Understand the emotions, the causes, consequences, and influence of different conditions. Label them with a vocabulary. Oh, I'm kind of bummed out. Well, let's be more specific. Expressing emotions aptly with different people in different contexts. You don't use the same thing to everybody in every place. And regulate them. How strategies. When I'm mad, upset, I'm depressed, whatever. What do I do about that? What are programmed to have in school? Well, part of the program has got a mood meter. You can help find out where you're at that. There's staff and professional learning. They go to a brief thing and they learn about how do you implement this. There's classroom instruction and the teachers then give to the kids. There's family engagement, so you can have a session for the parents. And hey, your kids are going to be talking about this stuff. They're going to be using a vocabulary that you're not going to be familiar with. So we're going to tell you what it is, so you can better communicate with your kids and discuss this emotion stuff. Wow. And out of school time. They even have a setting there. Before and after school programs where they talk about it. Gee, look at these girls. They're talking about it, not with their smartphone. How much do you think social media teaches any of that? Okay, next topic, more free play. Why free play instead of more academics? Well, the trend started way back in 1983 with the famous A Nation at Risk report showing the U.S. was falling behind other nations. in proficiency. Well, we got to do something about it. So what are we going to do? More time, math, science, academic, less time, recess, music, gym, art. Yeah, those are frill things. Get them out of there. 2001, No Child Left Behind Act. This was bad for schools and kids and everybody because it put pressure under schools now to teach to the tests. Because if your school doesn't do well on these tests, bad things can happen. You don't meet your targets and penalties. So longer school days, more academics, more homework, more drill, test prep. Yeah. Well, folks, you've been around long enough to know, well, how's that worked out? Well, guess what? Since then, the U.S. continued to slide internationally in comparison to other countries. 2013, way back then, 10 years ago, the Academy of Pediatrics did the critical role of recess in schools. Doctors are recognizing this. The benefits of free play for social and cognitive development. More and more data shows that eliminating or minimizing recess is actually counterproductive to academic achievement. So how does the U.S. ranking compare to other countries? This is updated on July 10th, 2024. Well, guess what? The U.S. still academically achievement lags out of their peers in many other countries. And specifically, they look at science, math, reading scores. PISA stands for an acronym Program for International Student Assessment. And here's you can look on there, and I don't know about you, but I don't find the U.S. on that particular list. You? Here's 2022 worldwide rankings all over the world. Well, number 18. Here's the United States down there at the bottom of the heap. Well, not the bottom of the heap, but not where we want to be, I don't think. In most assessments of educational systems, Finland is always ranked at or near the top. Why? What can we learn from the Finns? Well, Cambridge Educational Lab sent a bunch of their professors and people, let's go and spend a few weeks in Finland and see why are their schools so good. So they wanted to decode it. Well, what did they find? 9 reasons why the schools are so much better than in America. Finland's teachers have high status, professional support, and good pay. They're more selective and rigorous schools of education. You don't get into ed school just so-so because you can't get into anything else. Finland, I like this, does not give standardized tests. Finland emphasizes subjects other than reading and math. Has a history of tight oversight of schools. They're really watching how the schools are doing. Low child poverty and state support of parents. The schools all receive the same support, so there's no large range quality depending on where you live. So if you can afford it, I'm going to send my kids to this school because it's a lot better than this school. Or I'm going to move there so my kids can play sports. Or they're not there. Yes. Yeah.
Did they ban their cell phones?
I'm going to tell you that. Yes. Finland is culturally different, but they place a higher value on education. So what are some more things in addition? Teachers teach about 4 hours a day. 2 hours of professional development. All teachers are unionized, and the unions are powerful. Teachers are required to get a master's degree to teach. But if they're going to teach in the secondary, they have to have a master's in their subject. So you're not going to get a coach teaching something that he or she doesn't know much about. Students take only one standardized test, and that's at the end of high school. They all have an hour of recess, about half of that in the United States, and only homework up to 1 hour through middle school. So it's not like you're giving them tons of homework. Arts and crafts are required. Both boys and girls take embroidery, needlework, and metalwork. Child care is heavily subsidized. Most children have some kind of early childhood education before they start school at the mandatory age of 7. And it has one of the lowest rates of child poverty in the world at less than 5%. The United States, greater than 20% of child poverty. But parents get monthly allowances to help for their child, as well as medical and dental coverages. So if you're poor there, state safety net comes in and covers you and brings you up. One of the lessons from Finland and elsewhere is that children need more free play. So let me give you a quick example of that. Real world example. Central Academy of Arts in South Carolina. So Haight gives this example. Fourth grade teacher was saying, oh, my kids are struggling, they have a little resilience, they can't work with others. So he went to a conference in Clemson University, not too far away. It was all on free play. And you go, what? Free play? So he went back, and they made 3 changes. Longer recesses with little adult supervision, where the adults aren't stepping in, just like when we were kids. Opening the school playground for half an hour before school starts to give kids a chance to play before. And offering a play club 1 to 5 days a week. School stays open outside, or if the bad weather, inside, from 2:30 to 4:30. And they're given complete autonomy with just a couple of teachers hanging around in case something bad happens, which rarely does. And they can be doing lesson plans or working on grading. They're not out mucking around with the kids. It's like when we had recess and what we did after school. There was nobody checking us out. And you think, oh, come on. This is too simple. Well, what were the results? Within 1 semester, students were happier, kinder, more friends, had fewer behavior problems, fewer bullying, and less office referrals. The play club replaced either going home to a device, because what else? They're going to go home and get it on their cell phone. They're going to go on social media. Or to an adult activity. Oh, adult soccer. Okay, kids, this is how we're going to play soccer. You kids are going to do this, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do this. No, here, they just play soccer in the playground. Oh, let's get mixed grades, we're just playing soccer. Big difference. So the next semester, they said, we got to do this twice a week, this play club. This is cool. And they got data. Truancy goes down. Bus violations go down. Office referrals go way down. Just from more play. Well, how does it work? So the teacher said, yeah, these kids, they're learning empathy, emotional regulation, interpersonal skills, self-direction, all the things that we want our kids to learn. Corollary to better recesses, better playgrounds. First, have more and longer quality recesses. Yep, make our playgrounds more adventuresome, challenging, creative, and full of nature. Not like those first ones I said, no rules, no slides, anything like that. And have less rules and get out of the overprotection mode. Take a lesson from the Europeans, who have often excelled in creative play and natural learning. Well, as an example, Colleen Hoos breaks ground on a playground designed in Normal, Illinois. So what they said is, let's make this school really cool. Let's integrate nature into it so our kids can go out and we can use it. Now, they had a lot of room, which is nice, and they developed all this cool stuff around. So my question to you in Grinnell is, why couldn't we do something like this in Grinnell, especially in lieu of the Arns Foundation land grant? Let's just not be buildings for the kids. Let's try to look at a whole environment with nature, and being a science teacher, you could really use some creative stuff out there. Quiet time in an inner city school. Different topic. 2001, I invited Dr. George Rutherford to participate in a keynote address in Herrick Chapel as part of the Rosenfield Symposium on Integrative Medicine that Wayne Moyer and I put together. And he mandated 20 minutes of quiet time at the beginning of each school day in this inner city school in Washington, D.C., which is a really tough area, and at the end. You think, what? You're just going to have kids come in school, instead of making, they're just going to be quiet. And they locked the doors, they turned off the PAs, everybody did the quiet time. And at the end of the day, just before you go home, and he had been a principal for 45 years. He learned some meditation at Maharishi and said, we don't have to give them formal that, but we need to teach them how to calm their minds down. And I personally believe that 2 of the most important skills that we should teach all of our students is some form, as I mentioned before, of meditation and this quiet time and yoga. And it really transformed these kids. Unbelievable. I've been in the classrooms down at Fairfield and gone walk around in the schools and see what the kids are doing in the class that have this type of meditation or program. And it's just amazing. Another quick thing I'm going to talk about, what kids could do based on this one teacher. One more example. Secret ages of kindness. Wow, that sounds pretty neat. This teacher of 7th grade noticed that in the school system, a high school kid was killed. And his kids were all kind of shook up about that. Well, what do? We can't change the social thing. We can't get guns, blah, blah, blah. Well, what can you do proactive? So he said, we can teach compassion. So these secret agents, directions are draw the name of a classmate, do something kind for this person without letting them know, and then reveal your person in your act of kindness in the class. So here the kids go, they get a thing, they get a random kid they don't know anything about, and they have to figure out what random act of kindness are they going to do for this person. And they could hold the door open, it could be ready to give them a real sincere compliment, all these different things. Put a kind note in their locker, and you go, oh, big deal. Well, it is a big deal. So just a couple comments from the kids. I would love to do this assignment again because I got to make new friend. Second one, I learned that when you be kind to someone, you feel really good inside, and you make someone happy, you feel happy as well. What are we trying to teach our kids? And as Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see in the world. Isn't that really how we can increase compassion rather than hate in the world? Well, let's see what parents can do. Supervise and set limits. Engage and give them more responsibility in the real world. Strengthen the family. Make more social connections. Role model. Watch for signs of social media abuse. So, 1, set limits. No phone or screen use during family meals. No screens in the bedroom. Talked about Gentile study. Consider screen limits on family trips, camping or vacations. Have family discussions. Listen and elicit input from your kids. In the end, remember, you are the parents and you set the rules. I like this cartoon. Gee, it's been so nice getting to interact with you for these past 6 years. Here's your first device. Age recommendations. There's not complete agreement on age recommendations among experts, but I agree with these general consensus guidelines. As I mentioned before, every child in every situation is different. So you may have kids and grandkids and stuff. They handle this fine. But other kids can't. And a lot of those predispositions are based on genetics and other conditions. 0 to 5. Smartphones, computers, tablets, televisions are not suitable for kids up to age 3 years of age. Don't give your baby a cell phone to calm when it's screaming. Read or sing to them. Active interventions with parents and other family members on FaceTime, Zoom, or other video platforms is valuable. We're not saying don't do that. Of course, you want to do that. Encourage that. But just passive watching of screens, even if it says, oh, this is going to make your kid smarter. We got this educational thing. Your kid will be a genius if he does these programs. Be suspicious. Older children, 3 to 5, limited to an hour a day, 2 hours on weekend. But much of it should be shared or viewed simultaneously with a caregiver. Could be educational, entertaining. We love to watch a lot of things on public television. Do that with your family and other things. Because screens are so addictive and attention-grabbing, potentially great babysitters, this should be discouraged. Ages 6 to 13, no smartphones or contracts with social media. Okay. General rule, 2 hours of screen time a day. Max needs to be individualized, as we said, depending on content and the individual. Family viewing and discussion expands the limit. Well, we're all going to look at this podcast or watch this. Kids may have phones and internet access, yes, but they shouldn't be allowed to contract with a social media platform that has algorithms that's going to send them like Alexis and send you 10,000 things on skinny girls. And bring up all that again. They can still see videos, for example, on TikTok and YouTube. Most researchers, doctors, educators, it's best to delay to this contract till you're at least 16. We know the UK set at 18. And be sure they're digitally literate before they go online. And if you haven't got this in here by now, I think you need to. Why put a big star? The real risk of posting or sharing persistent information online, cyberbullying, sexting, sextortion, and the permanence of these posts. These kids don't have a clue. That's out there forever, kids. And what can be done with it, you don't have any control. Parental monitoring of social media. Remember Alexis? They tried. Admit it, kids are more tech savvy than most of us are. It's an understatement. Usually 5 or more steps ahead of our control. So anything, we're going to do this, they got that figured out. However, there are other things, parental things we can do. There are filters like Bark, Aura, GoStudio, and others. Common Sense Media, which I decided, even though I don't have any kids, grandkids right now, I went on that and actually, Lord, that's really cool. Common Sense Media. It's how to help you and your family and your kids deal with this. But remember, the ultimate goal is to get children to become self-governing and self-control. But brain maturation and wiring in the prefrontal cortex is slow, lasting well through puberty. And it must compete with this digital media and the dopamine hits from social media 24/7 in the default mode network. We got tough competition out there, folks. Be aware that many, if not most children, admit they do not feel well when they're on it. Now that we've limited the screen time in the virtual world, what can they do? Duh. Complain that they're bored, of course. Well, what am I going to do? I'm so bored. But just as we've seen, many parents, especially in the Anglosphere, have been too protective in the real world. As parents, we have been brainwashed by various media to believe there are multiple dangers in the world. They're getting worse. Pseudo-dangers, most of them, and ignoring the real dangers, which we've showed you. So let your kids become free-range kids. We love that term. A couple of books, Free-Range Kids, version 1 and 2. Lorraine Skenazy. First published in 2009 and then edition 2021. She's a newspaper columnist, if you don't know about her. She wrote an article for her 9-year-old son riding the subway in New York. Immediately, she was called and asked if she'd appear on the Today Show with Ann Curry and a parenting expert, of course. Then a few days, she was also interviewed by Fox News and MSNBC. Her action was spun by all these media as America's worst mom ever. Wow. But this motivated her to become more proactive for parents who have been badgered by society into being overprotective with their kids. And her books have been very successful. She's also founded the organization Let Grow. By the way, Jonathan Haidt, who did The Anxious Generation, he wrote a foreword in a book that says he referenced the positive effects on raising his kids. So here's the author of this book. Her son said, hey, you got good stuff here. We're going to do it. So let me just give you one chapter of the book example. Chapter 7, Eat Chocolate. Give Halloween back to the trick-or-treaters. Remember the good old days when we trick and treated with no fear except for scary costumes. But then came poison candy. Besides poison, now drugs like heroin were being injected into candy, into apples. Poison Halloween candy in Tech Challenge hospitals, service teams. What is that all about? Tech Challenge hospitals. Well, people are now finding razor blades, glass, and needles in children's treats. Ohio officials x-ray Halloween candy after trick-or-treat. 2021. The National Children's Hospital in Columbus, one of the biggest pediatric hospitals in the nation, offered free x-rays of your Halloween candy. Bring your kids and we'll x-ray it just to make sure it's okay. You don't want to go walk in the neighborhood, that's too dangerous. Safe place. Oh, we'll just have Halloween in the back trunk of this car and it'll replace trick-or-treating. This is at a church in Illinois. YouTube, horrific scenes, sexual predators out. I didn't know. Halloween was big for sexual predators. Wow. If that wasn't enough to be worried about, these predators, this quote. Some of you are familiar with the author of this. Recent years, reports of people with twisted minds putting razor blades, poison taffy, and Halloween candy. It's no longer safe to let your child eat trick-or-treats that come from strangers. Ann Landers, remember her, folks? If Ann Landers says it must be true. Well, let's go on some scientific fact-checking. Police have documented cases, people randomly poison goodies. No. Poison Halloween candy, myth. There are no cases on record of any child in America being poisoned by trick-or-treat candy. Nada. By X-rated, public health perspective. The authors of the book, she called that big hospital and said, oh, by the way, in Columbus, how many razor blades and glass and stuff did you find? And they said none, we never found anything. And so there was, in the medical journals, a thing like, hospitals, quit, you're wasting time, resources, X-raying this candy. We never find anything, and it's just ridiculous. Snopes, poison Halloween candy, never documented. This Joel Best, a professor of sociology at University of Delaware, went back to 1958 when I was trick-or-treating. 1958, all the data across the United States, and came up. How many cases did he find? Nada. Think of that. So it's just a clear example of complete cultural shift from what was once considered fun, free, safe holiday for kids and potentially dangerous activity. Needs close supervision and monitoring. Where did this adult, media-driven, unfounded fear cultivate in our children? It cultivates that it's a potential dangerous world out there. Don't trust strangers, even in your own neighborhood. Doesn't it drive them out of the discover mode into the defend mode that we talked about in the first one? Smothered with Safety, 2023, Journal of Pediatrics again. Doctors saying children's independence and free play have plummeted. The article concluded that this is not just correlation, it's cause and effects. This is from your pediatrician speaking, folks. Well, what else could school do? Besides Play Club, we've already mentioned Let Grow. It's another program that Lenore started. So Play Club, we taught that, let them grow. This is a great concept that I like. How many of you are familiar with it? Well, it's simple. Life-changing homework assignments. So I have a teacher in 5th grade say, okay, go home and do something new on your own. You have to talk with your parents, something that you've never done before. Stay alone for half an hour. Babysit your brother for make a meal, cut the grass, walk down to the store 4 blocks away and buy something and bring it back. Something you've never done before. Okay? And there are different versions in curriculum for preschool and up higher because there's more things you can do. And then you come back and you put this tree and you put a note on it. And you put your name, what you did for your Let Grow project, and how did it go, and what did you learn about it. So imagine getting this project as a kid. Every day or every week, every month you're doing a project, something, responsibility. We didn't have to do this as kids, but kids today do. How to give kids back their stolen focus. Johan Hari, who wrote the book, Stolen Focus, what I mentioned earlier. Let Grow project. It's great. Well, problem. October 22, 2024, mom arrested for letting kid walk outside. However, what could happen if parents reasonably let the kids roam free, as most of us did? My parents would have never been out of jail. Or worse, they would have taken me away. Free-range kids, Brittany Pearson. Arresting mom, whose kids take a walk. November 22nd, folks, of last year. So besides books, the Play Club, Lenore has been very proactive, trying to protect parents from legal liability. And so she's gone out and made some real changes. Most societies and countries around the world, we told you this is just the Anglosphere that's doing this now. It's not France, it's not Italy, it's not Japan. So we got a problem around here. And in the United States, you could take them away. It can be child abandonment. So she has a regional independent laws. Some states like Connecticut, the law said a child should never be left alone in public before age of 12. Think of that. A mom was arrested for letting her 11-year-old wait in the car while she ran into a store. What age were you allowed to be in public alone? What age should you babysit? What if you were a single mom? How are you going to negotiate that? Utah passed the First Nation Reasonable Child Law, and they said, no, this is ridiculous. We're just going to have this be what's reasonable. So, reclaim the strength of the family. We don't have to be Zamboni. What do selfies say about society? Samsung, 2013, the first selfie. It's the rise of a selfie, harmless fun or sign of society's narcissism. 80% of girls are using retouching apps by age 13. 1 in 3 girls don't think they look good without that. Want to highly recommend another book I found useful in my practice over the years, Doing Family Therapy, by John Rosemont. New, and it is new, he's updated it. The more parents try to make their children happy, the more they prevent their children from learning how to make and keep themselves happy. Blames child-centered parenting books from recent decades, creating a generation of dependent, often defiant children. Return to the tried and true fundamental parenting truths that people did naturally before the new science of parenting. Some of his hypotheses are parents aren't their children's friends, they're their leaders. And parents are the center of a family, not kids. Little paradigm shift. Your marriage must come before your children. Here's an open question. What effect did the selfie society and social media have on the last election? I know how I think. Encourage them to make real-world social connections. Invite other kids over, play dates, sleepovers, without digital media or screens. Pick up sports outside in games, like we used to play. Walk to school. Encourage them, but don't force them, extracurricular activities, sports, band, choir, 4-H, and clubs. Try to get them into summer camps, which don't allow phones. And be sure to allow them plenty of free play. Number 5, role model. The values and behaviors you espouse. Put down your phone. Limit your screen time. Read books to them. Don't use your phone at bedtime. This is adults, folks. Nor check it first thing in the morning, which we found most people do. Join service clubs or other organizations, get involved. Model good diet and regular exercise. Watch for signs of media addiction and declining mental health. If it's interfering significantly with school, strong cravings, prevents them from getting 8 hours of sleep. If they lie or deceptive behavior, that could be a red flag. They keep using the media even if they say, I don't want to do this, but they just can't help themselves. They display a lack of interest in things they previously enjoyed, signs of depression or anxiety. Then you need professional help. What can grandparents do or great-grandparents? When they visit, tell them, you don't want them using any of their screens or devices. Encourage them to engage with you in things that they may enjoy. Engage them in hobbies, skills, or activities that you have enjoyed over the years. Interact in the real world. Build something with them. Take them in your shop. Teach them to sew or paint, cook. Let them drive some farm equipment. Take them fishing or hunting, or just like in the woods. Family games that include everybody. If they're very young, read to them. Missing out. Children miss out on quality time with their grandparents. So one young man put it, I really wish I had gotten to know my grandfather better before he died, instead of always playing video games when he visited. What can individuals, kids, and adults do? Self-monitor, socialize more. Service to others, back to nature. The basics. Diet, exercise, sleep, get more to nature. Self-monitor. Self-regulate. We want to teach people to do that. We found over the years that many patients, I found that they can use data to help them. An example, glucose monitors. I found people that having trouble with their diabetes, if they knew what the blood sugar was, it actually changed their behavior. So before they're going to need a meal, even if they're not insulin-dependent diabetic, they check the sugar and they find, oh, it's 380. I better not have that. Or, oh, it's only 105. I can have it. So it can change behavior. Fitbit watches to remind you, oh, you've been sitting too long. Meep, meep, get up and move. You've only got 25 steps today. Better get moving. Brain monitors, which I use, Muse, can show you where your brain is as far as gives you biofeedback on getting to a lot of alpha waves. What do phone app monitoring do? They help. You can have your kids or other people can monitor screen time. It can do blocks. I don't want this site coming on. It can do review. It can track. And individual goals, custom prompts. And so I'm not sophisticated on how to do this, but it can help. Well, how well does limiting phone use work, and how long does it take? Studying examples. Professor came down, Gentile, Iowa State. June of 2023, cutting back on social media reduces anxiety, depression, and loneliness. This is what we want to do. He got 230 college students and said, look, we just want you to be on a half an hour a day of your social media. Remember, average is 5, just a half. And we're going to give you little prompts to remind you of this. And we'll bring them back and measure them, and guess what? Significantly lower anxiety, depression, and loneliness than the control. Better outlook on life. Also find significant results can be seen in 2 weeks. Gentile study. 14-year-old girl of one of my cardiologists went to summer camp last summer, and she was a horrible, neurotic, depressed, anxious mess. She came back from the camp after 2 weeks with no phones, and her doctor said, I can't believe it. She's a different, changed girl. She's the girl it used to be. A news and media blackout. I've done this for adults with major depression and anxiety. I say, look, what gets you when I turn on MSNBC or see the news in the morning, or I scroll my stuff, and you go, well, how does it make you feel? Do a 2-week blackout. Just 2 weeks. Don't watch any news. Just block it out. And then see how you are in 2 weeks. And if you don't better, go back to all your news. And if you find out, oh, I feel tremendously better, things are better. Oh, now I'm going to go back, or I'm not going to go back to do that. It works. So, permanent changes, you can see a lot in 2 weeks, but it takes a habit, at least 6 to 8 weeks to get a habit. The dopamine teeter-totter, we can't get rid of that, folks. We're stuck with that. We have to rebalance it. Socialize more, both adults and children, as we're getting closer to the end here. Bowling Alone, a great book by Robert Putnam. And books about bowling. Some of you are old enough to remember we had bowling leagues. Well, here's the plot of bowling leagues in the United States, men and women, from the 1920s to 2010. What do you notice? It peaked way up there in the 60s. Well, this slide shows 2 things. It shows capital, financial money capital, going up. Now, I can't extend this because we know what happened lately with this. This is going to go, but over all this time. And over here, this is social capital over all this time. Notice social capital goes way up in the 60s when I was a kid. I feel very fortunate to do that. So what is social capital? Well, social capital is being in clubs, organizations, PTAs, bowling leagues, women's clubs, networking. It teaches all these things: participation, citizenship, power, proactivity, diversity. And Putnam lately says, our kids, this is not good. They're not getting any of this stuff that we got. Clubs, organizations. And I don't have any time to give this, but this is one boy who made a Dine Together club in high school. He just went around and found kids that were sitting all alone in the cafeteria and talked to them a little bit and said, hey, you want to join this We Dine Together club? And this lonely kid sitting by himself said, yeah. Well, come on over, and every lunch you come with us. And then they recruit other kids. And think of the effect that that had. It was incredible. Boca Raton. Called Dine Together. 50 students by the end of the year, spread to 15 other schools and hundreds around the United States. So, you can encourage kids to get out and do stuff, but we have to model ourselves. How many social organizations are you in? And this group is very selective. So I know all of you are in a zillion different things, but a lot of people in Grinnell are not. And do you find it's hard these days to attract new members? So if you're in the Kiwanis, the Elks, the Masons, to try to get new people in there, yeah, because, yeah. I suggest the way to expand it is, for example, if you're interested in parents, not you or grandparents, get Free Range Kids book. I got some at the bookstore for that, and it's $5. So send it to one of your kids or whatever, have them read it, but have them get together with some other parents or grandparents and say, hey, why don't we have a little book club and discuss this book? Or the Jonathan Haidt book, Anxious Generation. And they find out, oh, this book club idea is kind of cool, Back to nature, last topic. The negatives of the great rewiring, they spend very little time outdoors. They're looking at phones, if they are outside. If they notice something, we take a picture of it or we shoot it off to somebody. It's rare to them to take in the emotional experience. So here's this kid outside, but he's not checking the dandelions, he's on his phone. This is what we want the kids doing. Magnifying glass, checking stuff out, looking for bugs, catching bugs. All walks is the new term for what most of us, we just did it naturally. I didn't know it was an all walk. Now adults rarely do it. Scientists say taking all walk can transfer your well-being also. Japanese use a term for it called forest bathing or shinrin-yoku. It's prescribed for symptoms of anxiety and depression. Japan and other places. Not Prozac or Valium, things like that. Forest bathing, what it is and potential benefits. This article is from the Cleveland Clinic. Proven to. And even if you live in a big city, which most people do, you can still do all walks. There are places to find that. If you're a pet owner, your dog can recruit you for an all walk. So you get your dog out there, so I like this because the dog is saying, what you're going to do with me, speaking from the dog's perspective, we're going to notice everything. We're going to do this. Think about the big things. Even our pets can do it. Another book, I'm a bibliophile, Last Child in the Woods, a classic on the topic which I can't recommend too highly. First edition in 2005, most recent in 2015. Same deal in price at the college bookstore, 5 books. Saving Our Children from Nature Deficit Disorder. Children in nature movement is fueled by the fundamental idea that a child in nature is an endangered species. And the health of our children and the health of the earth. How do we expect these new generations to be climate control and let's preserve nature if they're never in nature? They're just seeing it on a screen. Doesn't work. And I had an arrow down there. He's got a field guide with 100 practical actions we can take. Okay. I'd like to conclude with other helpful habits we can all develop and cultivate. Closely related with all walks and spirituality is meditation. Many types, mindfulness, in my opinion, is the most useful. I've used it successfully myself in my private practice. Time tested over thousands of years. It's a fundamental skill and practice, along with regular exercise, diet, adequate sleep, frequent socialization, and service to others. So in conclusion, I hope I've convinced you that there really is a worldwide crisis in mental health. And it's due not only to the overuse, not social media, the overuse of it, but also this change that protectionism and distortions of the real world out there that has been foisted on us for the last 10 to 20 years. I've suggested multiple actions, different people, organizations. I restate that only through a combination of actions can we attain success. I also believe the recent election, that's a whole other could-be topic, and outcome, was drastically shaped by social media and intentional distortions of both reality and character. What next? I think all of us could find something to work on. Both personally, ourselves, what we can do, parents, what we can do as grandparents, and in the community. We need to help mold our children's brains in the way we want and not in the way social media wants to mold their brains. So I encourage you to discuss this presentation with others and share them on YouTube. I like that YouTube link, though we're trying to get it at the website. If you get there, to get to this. That's a simple one. I like simple. And look, if there's 2 of them up there, I think we only have 1 right there, but we want the most this up to date because I put some slides in here that I couldn't have when I did it last fall because I didn't know about brain rot. And I plan on continuing momentum, showing the documentary Trust Me at different places, and we'll have it at the Mayflower in a while, and then at the college. And I think we should all work with the schools to support the phone bans and to get digital literacy. So, thank you for your attention and welcome any feedback that you may have, good or bad. So, thanks.
Thank you so much, JR. Thank you for both last week and this week. Lots of really wonderful information. I am seeing the time, and I think it probably would be appropriate if we end here.
Anybody can talk to me after.
And yeah, absolutely.
Or if you want to set up a
yeah.
little powwow, if I get a group of 1 or more,
That
I'm
sounds
happy
great.
to get together and
Thank you.
talk further, debrief stuff about this.
Okay.
And if
that
there's
sounds
free
great.
food, I'm more
More likely to set that up
yeah.
from others, not you.
No,
They
correct.
provide the food. Yes, you provide the answers. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, for attending today. Next week, we welcome Leslie Wright, who served as the director of Grinnell College Museum of Art for over 20 years. She's going to be talking about creating a museum for the entire community. So I look forward to seeing everyone here next week. And again, JR, thank you for both last week and this week. Wonderful information, and we were thrilled to have you here. So thank you, everyone. Have a great week.